Diversity is a disaster. Every place it is. There are just fewer transactions costs. There are a few benefits, but they are very few and far between, and being
Well,
lied
let me
to
tell you,
incessantly about this. Hmm.
I, as an immigrant here, find and have found,
You're not
I mean, I grew up
diverse.
in a completely white
I was
situation.
going to, you're not diverse, Andrew.
No, I know I'm not diverse. I'm utterly non-diverse. Well, I have a little bit. I could nip into a few different diverse categories if I wanted to. I'm just not particularly interested. But what I do think about America is that what makes it so wonderful to me, for example, is for example, to put it bluntly, the white people here don't realize how black they are. That in fact, American culture is so much enlivened and
Yes.
strengthened by this incredible contribution of African American culture, music,
Yes.
dance, you name it. And it's also a place where you can live in Seattle or Miami. I mean, this is incredible. Miami is an amazing place. Seattle, I mean, apart from all the woke
Right.
insanity, is a lovely place to live. This is incredibly, I mean, you go from the north of England to south of England in the 70s, and it was all the bloody same, and it was all incredibly depressing. It's what a socialist country really ends up as, which is clinically depressed. I do think that's a wonderful thing. I like living among people who aren't like me. I pick up all sorts of interesting things. Now, I
Uh-huh,
believe in
uh-huh.
cultural appropriation. I believe in the great
Yes.
churn. I believe in all this becoming an America that we can understand to be American. But
Well,
I
could I
don't
say
think that
two
is a
things?
weakness. Now, obviously, it means that there are going to be tensions, more tensions, less social trust to some extent in some
Yes.
places. We know this as social science. But surely lamenting something that is a fact is a dumb thing to do. And secondly, how do we make it work? That's the question. I don't think we make it
Right.
work by saying none of you should be here anyway. That's a terrible way to make it work.
Right. No, I don't think Peter's saying that. We're talking about going forward. But three quick things on that. One is absolutely right about African Americans, and it's a point I really stress in my book, Adios America. That was the America of 3 or 4 centuries, about 80 to 90% white, about 10 to 20% black, and yes, enormous influence on the culture. That is the American culture. And descendants of American slaves, no, they deserve all of the diversity points. And if you're going to have set asides or affirmative action, but oh no, we're doing all the worst things when you talk about, going forward. No, everybody gets affirmative action points except historic American whites. So the ones who should be getting it, historic American blacks, yes, they get it. But I notice if you look at the corporate boards of directors, wait, what are all these Indians doing here? What did we do to them? This has nothing to do with slavery. Are you kidding me? This is just anti-racism against the historic white portion of the historic American nation. Um,
But wouldn't you
and
simply say the following, that in fact we haven't changed that much? That within a couple of 2 or 3 generations, we're already seeing this now with Latino immigrants, that I agree with you, and I would agree with you, the pace of this does make a difference. It really does, the pace and volume, because the ability to integrate people into that
yes,
America becomes problematic. So I totally understand the case for lowering the pace and volume of it, because when that does happen, it does become hard to digest, and we end up with crises that we did in the 1920s when we shut down immigration for 50 years, basically.
which
But
is about what we need now. But wait a second, your
yeah,
Seattle,
but let's
Miami
say
point.
50 years time,
Uh-huh.
Asians and Latinos, maybe not so much Asians, but who knows, they will consider themselves Americans the way that Italians do now, that they didn't used to, that other groups that were not traditionally WASPy, the Irish, for example, are now completely fine with being assimilated into that mainstream. Why will that not happen again? I can certainly see the Latino population, for example, growing more and more integrated, marrying more, becoming more Republican for that matter, which seems to be happening. Um, isn't this just a temporary, in other words, piece of indigestion? And that if we could calm it down, we'd be
Yes.
okay?
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that is, I mean, I won't speak for Peter Brimelow, but yes, that's the point. We need to Stop it now, assimilate the ones already here. Yes, of course it can be done, but not if you're bringing in another 2 million from the most different cultures imaginable who are living among themselves. I mean, the fact that we have ballots in 87 different languages, I promise you, they are not speaking Urdu on the Senate floor. So this is really unhelpful. But one thing I wanted to say, which is a more abstract point, when you talk about going down in England and it's all the same, Seattle versus Miami. Yeah, but the geographic distance would be more like you're going from England to Greece, going from England to Northern Africa. And the more we do this mixing, I mean, you lose something of different cultures. When I go to France, I want to go to France. I don't want to go to Algeria. And same thing with London. When I want them, I don't know, in the Netherlands dancing in clogs and I want there to be tulips and eating whatever crazy food they eat.